What is the most expensive mistake you've ever made? For me, I got the wrong degree for $55,000. At least that's the story I told myself. When I went to college, I didn't know what to major in. That wasn't a conversation that me and my Filipino immigrant parents talked about. They just told me, go to college. They didn't tell me what to do when I got there. So, like any regular first gen student, you explore different classes in your first and second year. But by your third year, you definitely had to choose a degree. I took into account all the things that I was interested in, what I felt like I was good at, and what would keep my interest for the long haul. I ended up settling on secondary education, specifically English, because I thought at the very least I could go back to my high school and give back to my community. Halfway through that degree, I ended up taking a British literature class, and I just remember sitting there thinking, I literally cannot teach this to my students. And so then I took some time to reflect. Okay, if I can't teach curriculum like this, but I still want to teach, then what else is out there that I could possibly be or pursue? I definitely love teaching and I want to support with the development of the next generation. I like having my own classroom. I like being able to have influence and impact. I like being able to watch a young person grow and to have breakthroughs and to support them in their journey. I was thinking about freshmen in high school because, after they got knocked down a couple times in middle school, I wanted to support in rebuilding up their self-esteem right when they got into high school. I just started connecting all the dots of the things that I liked about the idea of teaching. But what can I do that's on a bigger scale than that? It's like, how can I teach outside of the classroom? How can I make life the curriculum and teach us the lessons that we need to learn to at least enjoy this human experience? And so then the next best thing I thought of was becoming a talk show host. And so I remember going to my academic advisor and I asked them, hey, I'd like to be a talk show host. What degree can I pursue to make that happen? We ended up discovering a degree in communication studies. And so I ended up taking the classes and I enjoyed them so much. We were talking about groupthink and public speaking and nonverbal communication and gender studies. And so I didn't question them because I was enjoying what I was learning. But by the time I graduated, I realized I knew nothing about how to have an actual talk show. And so, unfortunately, I didn't know that there was a difference between communication studies and another degree called just communications. I trusted my academic advisor to advise me down the best path to become a talk show host. And unfortunately, we both missed the mark. Them by not communicating other options and what that can look like, and me not asking the questions to be like, how does this align? So for a long time, I believed that I got the wrong degree. And this was an expensive mistake to make, not only in money, but in time, because I added an extra year and made it a 5-year journey to get a degree and make my parents proud. So what's a graduate to do next? So the next best thing I could think of was to start making videos on YouTube. It was around 2012. I already had a couple YouTube videos on there because I used it to promote my campaigns for Student Body President and Homecoming King. So I thought, well, since I don't have any more classes to take, then the best thing I can do is just jump on YouTube and see if I figure it out from there. It's been over 10 years since I started that channel and I still don't have a talk show. But what I did notice over the years is how social media was on the rise and that people's communication skills were actually declining. And so as time continued to go on, I realized I thought maybe I didn't get the wrong degree, but that I got the right degree, or at least the best degree for me, especially during this time period when people have forgotten how to be people with each other and communicate with each other. So after years of exploring of what I can do with this degree, I have found myself back on YouTube and wanting to continue to explore my communication skills. So not only do I practice on YouTube, especially in this 100-day challenge, but I also try to be a part of clubs such as Toastmasters and also learning from guys like Vin, who has blown up on social media and teaching people how to be better communicators. And so this morning, I came across one of his reels talking about the trend of yapping. And if y'all haven't noticed, I definitely know how to yap, as I've been a yapper pretty much my whole life. But I'm going to be honest, just because I've been doing it my whole life doesn't mean that I'm actually that great at it. And so even though I think I'm slightly above average than most people, I also have to recognize the time period that we're in, especially when it comes to people's attention spans. And as much as I hate to admit, and as much as I don't want to practice, but the realization is if I want to get any message across, if I want to communicate my mission, then I should continue to learn how to become a better yapper. So I decided to click on Vin's training and began watching it this morning. And so early on in the training, he was talking about how he became a better yapper, how he became a better communicator, how he got into the point of how he got to the point where he can teach others how to become better communicators. In the beginning, he actually was talking about his first entrepreneurial endeavor, coming from immigrant parents and talking about a time period in the 2000s. He was talking about how he used eBay to sell MP3 players with their parents' credit card. And yeah, I can only imagine, obviously, the trouble that he got in afterwards. But he realized that in that moment, that he was able to create his reality, and that he realized that the more that his communication rised, the more that his reality rised. That reminded me of the wrong degree that I got. I remember that there was two important lessons that I learned from my degree that I still learn to this day. One of them is the theory of intersectionality. I got my degree back in 2013, and this isn't something that a lot of people were talking about at the time. And I can't say if it's something that a lot of people are talking about now, but definitely a lot more than ever. So if you don't know what the theory of intersectionality is, in my own words, it's basically recognizing that the culmination of all of our identities. And so using myself as an example, being born in the States, having Filipino parents, particularly Filipino immigrant parents, being born in a female body, presenting as a masculine center person, being queer, all these other things that we can, being short is another one. I would say that's probably the identity that I have struggled with the most in my life, because my last name is also short. So that's a whole different story. But if you just put those 9 and I can add 10, I don't know, having short hair, because I can have long hair, having short hair, like having those 10 different identities accumulating into my whole person and my whole being, and how that influences how I see the world and how I walk through the world. And so I want to be clear and specific. Let's go ahead and look up the definition of the theory of intersectionality also, just so we can have some clarity around it. The definition of the theory of intersectionality. All right, so we can do search assist here. Nope, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We could go into Britannica here. So intersectionality in social theory is the interaction and cumulative effects of multiple forms of discrimination affecting the daily lives of individuals, particularly women of color. The terms also refer more broadly to an intellectual framework for understanding how various aspects of individual identity, including race, gender, social class, and sexuality, interact to create unique experiences of privilege or oppression. The concept of intersectionality has since been broadened beyond its initial framework of race and gender. It now includes a wide spectrum of social classifications such as socioeconomic class, sexual orientation, age, physical or intellectual disabilities, and other dimensions of individual identity. Intersectionality emphasizes the different dimensions of identity are not isolated from one another. Instead, they intertwine and overlap in intricate ways, resulting in distinct advantages or disadvantages, benefits or harms. As you can see, and what we're learning together, right, through the Britannica, it's more mapping the margins, intersectionality, identity, politics, and violence against women of color. We're seeing highlighted words as discrimination, civil rights, prejudices, W.E.B. Du Bois, culture, gender, etc., etc. For myself, and like I said, I speak from my own definition, I also think that how we present is another part of it. Again, for me, a big one is my height and how I see the world from down here or up there, depending on who I'm talking to. And so, those are probably less serious identities, but I can speak for myself. They're part of my own. Nonetheless, I digress. Let's get back to here. But more importantly, the other lesson that I learned from my degree that I haven't forgotten since is that language creates our reality. Well, what does that mean? Well, it's like what we've been talking about in past videos. Whatever is in your imagination and formulates as thoughts, then words, and more importantly, action, but even further on importance is intentional action, is what actually creates our realities. I say this as I'm looking at my digital vision board on my second monitor. And for a second, I asked myself, what is the point of a vision board? I speak from my own experience. I've done them for a long time. but I can't say and sit here that I have actual evidence that it's worked. But now that I'm speaking to all of you and making sense and making connections and connecting the dots, I think that maybe the point of a vision board is recognizing that it is images and that most people or a lot of people are visual learners. So then this is making me think of the word imagination. What is in the word imagination? Image. So if what you imagine is what you think, and what you think is what you speak, and what you speak is what directs us in taking action, so then maybe there is some validity to a vision board. But I'm not saying that a vision board is what's going to make your dreams come true. But it can definitely be a start for some people. But recognizing that it's only a step in the process. Again, imagination, images that turn into thoughts, that turn into words, that turn into action. It's in the action, in the doing of making them come true is the most important part. But it's all a part of the process. But let's be real. Most people's thoughts never leave their head. And if they do they even come out of their mouths effectively? Does it even come out of their mouths thoughtfully? And more importantly, does it come out of their mouths intentionally? I say this when I think about what I learned with my degree. Language creates our reality. Let's be honest, English is a limited language. And so even in the words that we're using, deciding to use one word or the other, like for instance, I got interviewed yesterday by Filipinos of Montreal. And one of the questions that they asked me was, am I happy? Or how do I experience happiness? And I was like, wait a second. Let's stop and pause right there and look up the definition of what happy means or happiness means. And as I predicted, there was more than 5 definitions in there. But we started with the first one. And it talked about, let's look it up right now because it was from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Yes, there's 5 definitions in there, but I decided to just start with the first one. And it says, enjoying or characterized by well-being and contentment. And so I told them, even in that moment, when I see the word enjoying, what I see, I don't necessarily see ENJOY. I see INJOY. And what that means to me is, am I experiencing joy within me? So then we continued. I said, okay, am I experiencing joy within me and characterized by well-being and contentment? And I said, in this moment, yes, I'm experiencing joy within me and my well-being and contentment in this moment. And I say this because, they were trying to ask the question like a very big, like, are you happy? Or how do you define happiness as this very like generalized broad stroke? And it's taken a long time for me to practice not only seeing things in broad strokes, but in finer strokes and in the practice of being in the now and being in the present. I so much so that I got a tattoo just to remind myself, like, the only time that really exists is the now. And so I answered, yeah, I'm enjoying myself right now. I am happy right now. I am content right now. And so if you haven't noticed, intentionality is really important to me. And that in the practice, in everything that we imagine and everything that we think and everything that we speak and everything that we do, the practice of intentionality is what I believe creates our reality. I feel like if we're nonchalant about our thoughts and not monitoring or guarding our thoughts, then that's what creates kind of a mess in our reality. If you see outside of yourself and you see within ourselves, the way that we talk about ourselves, the way that we talk about others, the way that we talk about events and situations and circumstances is what keeps creating itself. It's like they say that thoughts become things. Where focus goes, energy flows. So think about that. Think about your current reality and how you view the world. Yes, from your intersectional identities, but more importantly, from the images that you're putting into your mind. The image that is wanting to create without the influence of outside forces. Recognizing how often do you allow your mind to just sift through all of the information that we're putting into it, from all the influences that we're giving it. How much of our imagination and our thoughts and our words are we outsourcing to artificial intelligence? And how intentional have we been of connecting with the infinite intelligence? So how does this all come back to communication and how it creates our reality. Recognizing first and foremost that majority of our communication is actually nonverbal. It's in the clothes that we wear. It's in the ways that we move our hands, and the ways that our eyes light up, or the ways that our faces scrunch together. Think about it. If we go back to our ancestors' day and before English, before we were actually putting words together and creating words, it was really based off of sounds, the vocality and the high and the low and the fluctuation of or whatever. But most of it was through this and asking for help in this way, or we need to pick this up, or we need to chop this down. And so recognizing that we are always communicating, even if it's not coming out verbally, even if it's not coming out as words and as language, wanting to also note sign language too. So if that is the case, if we are always communicating in one way or another, the question is, what are we communicating? How are we communicating? And more importantly, why are we communicating? And I hope after going through that thought process is the recognition of the responsibility of our realities, of the external reality and of the internal reality of what we're communicating to ourselves and what we're communicating to others, and realizing that we can't do anything alone. So if you have any visions or dreams, it requires others. And it requires communicating effectively to others. So just like I'm in my own tensions of just like, sure, yeah, I can yap all day, but to continue to learn from people like Vin to teach us how to communicate more effectively for humans today who don't have the attention spans that we once had before. But that if we want to create a new reality, then it requires the recognition of the responsibility of what we're communicating, how we're communicating, and why we're communicating. And also in the practice of becoming a more effective communicator, and in this world, an engaging communicator. So whether it's your personal reality or the contribution of the greater reality, where can you start? Well, for some of you, you can spend $55,000 on a communication studies degree like I did. Or you can use that money to invest in courses or coaches like Vin. But I have an even better idea that doesn't cost $55,000, but is actually free. You can start right now with the next word that you speak. Are you going to use words like happy or enjoyment? Are you going to use words like always and never or often and sometimes? Are you going to use words like frustrated, hate, pissed off, angry, depressed, anxious, upset? Or are you going to use other words like open, curious, understanding, empathetic, compassionate, graceful, hopeful, helpful? Both on different sides of the spectrum. Asking ourselves, what kind of reality are we creating based off of the words that we're using, the thoughts that we're thinking, and the actions that we're taking? Remember, communication is a timeless skill, no matter what happens out there. And it's a skill worth working on. So I'm going to hop back into this training to learn from Vin. You can find his Instagram in the description below. But I'm going to get to practice of becoming a better and more effective communicator for you and the creation of these videos. So I hope that this inspires you, that if you have a mission and a dream and a vision, and that you want to get your message across and contribute and support and help others, I hope you consider sharpening this skill called communication, not just in words, but in all ways. And I hope that you see this as a signpost or a clue that will continue to guide you on your path and helping you on your journey. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.